Greetings, it is I, your tour guide through the Sanguine Archives, Orkar Isber, welcoming you to another venture into the labyrinth. Let's see what we can uncover today in the light, because today's topic actually deals with a more out of character than in character topic. It is I Command Thee, Baali as player characters. This topic is quite spicy though. Baali were originally clearly created as non-player characters, as the bad guys that even Sabbath can look down at. However, as versions crept forward and times changed, Baali became more and more fleshed out to a point where I personally feel like they are supposed to be player characters, and not so much non-player characters, because they bring a lot to the table to refresh any old group and spicing up any adventure that you might have. However, it also comes with unique problems to the group and the coterie alike. For the former, the important thing about playing a Baali is that no one must know that you play a Baali. Some people can differentiate between player and character knowledge, many however sadly cannot, and if the characters find out that you are a Baali, you are doomed. So you kinda rely on letting everyone else in the dark, unless you really know and trust the group that you are playing with, but even then you rob the group and the players of the amazing experience of the characters being slowly corrupted without their knowledge and likely not realizing it until it is much too late to turn back, and then they will become apostates. Depending on the group, you may not even want the storyteller to know what you are playing. However, you of course have to check with the storyteller first if he is okay with such things or needs to know all the details about the character for the story. Also ask the storyteller if they think it's a good idea to let the group know what you are playing or not. Similarly, you need to have a talk with the group with what kind of content they are okay with. Vampires, and indeed the entire World of Darkness, is a very mature roleplay setting to begin with, and as a rule of thumb, if a group can stomach the Giovanni, they likely can stomach the Baali too. However, the Baali are even worse than the Giovanni, so make sure that you check with the group if they are okay with such content. Of course, try it without telling everyone that you intend to play a Baali. You also do not have to actually play out all the things that the Baali do, and especially as they usually do them all by themselves in a hideout, hidden away from everybody and their praying eyes. So just make sure that everyone is on board with the content that usually comes along with the Giovanni, which is sex, cannibalism, all kinds of dark rituals, with the Baali possibly slaying children, stuff like that. If they're okay with it, you can have a lot of fun. You also have to check with the players if they are okay with what happens to their characters. Having bad stuff happening inside the World of Darkness is one thing. Having it happen to your character is a very different. With those hurdles out of the way, the Baali can make for insanely satisfying roleplay for everyone involved. For one, you get to corrupt fellow characters without them realizing until you drop the bomb, and they can't turn back. Let's just say for censoring reasons, I managed to get an innocent, sweet little Toreador to eat children and do all kinds of very debauched things, sacrificing people, indeed, breeding humans just for the blood and meat. And then I dropped the bombshell and got myself an apostate. I mean, if you do all the things that the Baali do, you might as well just join the club for good. It's not like the Toreador can rat out my Baali without being destroyed herself. And it is quite satisfying roleplay indeed if you manage to get a character to leave the road of humanity behind and become a monster like you are. You can of course also lure other characters with everything they desire, may it be knowledge, power, some hidden desires that you may be able to fulfill, and so on and so forth. And of course, dropping the Baali bomb after a long series of play is likely one of the best role-playing moments you will have and give to fellow players. It's a huge reveal and a very mind-altering one at that. You can leave it open if they decide to destroy your character or join him, and such reveals should be handled with care. But from my experience, this is some high-level role-playing that beats the twists and turns in movies and TV shows. Then again, constantly hiding your true character from fellow players and masquerading as something else has this secret agent undercover feeling that is absolutely amazing to play, in special how you fit in the things you have to do without anyone becoming suspicious. You can even use fake character documents if you play and only show the one openly that you are posing as, with the actual character sheet of the Baali hidden from other players. With a Baali in group you can also explore a lot of the lore and background to the World of Darkness that most coteries never experience or learn about, and get your players so much deeper into the world. And, with a lot of caution, you can explore the human psyche as well. It's a different story than doing that with Malkavians though. Crossovers into Demon the Fallen also can happen. Your Baali likely made a pact, though not all Baali do that, and thus has a demonic contact and may indeed have to deal with ghosts from the Wraith franchise of his victims, or having angered Fae after him, or indeed angered demons. And if a normal vampire is a must kill for werewolves, wait until they encounter a Baali. Mages are less likely to encounter Baali, though with their occult dealings and often hiding as Tremere that can happen as well, and then there is of course an Effendi who openly aid and work with the Baali. As a Baali player myself, I really like the part of corrupting fellow characters, and with the Baali, the Daimonian discipline, you have a great tool for roleplay. Being able to learn your target's fears and vices, their greatest desires and needs, is something that is extremely useful, and you can mimic aspects with it to some degree. That said, Daimonian is overall not that impressive of a discipline until you hit high levels. However, there are some particular skills that you can learn with Daimonian that are very powerful. In the recent Lore of the Bloodlines they made a crossover skill with animalism that allows you to use disciplines through a swarm of insects that you control, which means that you can use, say, the path of hellfire flames from the dark thaumaturgy at a distance, which is absolutely overpowered. Similarly, you can become completely immune to fire, which is of course very handy for a vampire, and if you play as Azaniali, you get to pair it with shadow armor and shadow form, which makes you immune to pretty much anything but sunlight and magic. Even fire can't touch you, so you are pretty much truly immortal here. That is definitely a killer combo and allows for some very interesting and creative ways to protect your haven. Just keep in mind a flamethrower might not light you on fire, but potential guests and of course your haven itself, which is not really something you want to happen, I suppose. The real trick with playing a Baali as a player character is that you have to mimic being from another clan. The good thing is that you can mimic pretty much every clan and fit into pretty much every coterie imaginable. You can even go to pretty much any city you like. It's not that difficult to pull it off. Some pose as Toreador, many pose as either Tremere or Old Clan Tzimisce. That works pretty well. Modern Clan Tzimisce works too, but it's a bit harder to explain why you can do some magic tricks. All clans work in theory, though the Sethites and the Assamites are a pretty bad choice, because those usually can smell a Baali from miles away. Personally, I would recommend playing a clan that you are most familiar with, competent in portraying, and just have your Baali be that character, because you can really be a Baali in secret but anything else openly. Because if the Baali were so easy to spot and wouldn't be able to hide themselves amongst others, they wouldn't exist anymore. So just play whatever you have fun with and like, and add the Baali background to it. Doing all the things that Baali have to do in a gameplay can actually be done out of the session in the downtime, just like you would do with some other encounters that other people don't necessarily need to witness. You can have meetings with your coven at any given time that is helpful to the storyteller, or just have it off screen, definitely, for security reasons. And of course, you can have a lot of fun with crossover disciplines, if you dare to. The biggest problem you have from game mechanics when playing a Baali is that you very likely will have to learn quite some out-of-clan disciplines to at least some level, so that people actually will believe that you are from a certain clan. That is why the Tremere are so useful, because with your first dot in Daimonion you can already mimic Auspex, and of course you have access to Dark Thaumaturgy, which is basically just like the normal Thaumaturgy, and you can learn regular thaumaturgical paths with it as well. With Obfuscate you can of course also try to pass as a Malkavian, and if you do some weird or strange things, people will just suspect that's the Malkavian blood in you. And of course you have those insights from, as I said, Daimonion. Interestingly, many Baali in the lore actually pose as Toreador, or indeed Old Clan Tzimisce. Both work rather well as well. Just keep in mind that you don't want too much attention. You don't want spies following you when you sneak off into the night. And you definitely do not want the limelight where the office that you hold kind of demands a lot of time and attention from you, and will of course give a lot of attention to you as well. While there are Baali that pull off to be an elder, or better said even a primogen in their city, it's usually quite difficult to do so, and I wouldn't advise that for player characters. You should definitely take a look at the special merits and flaws that come for the Baali, because some of them are very interesting from a lore perspective and from a character background perspective. However, some are not really advisable for player characters. As example, there is a merit that allows you easier access to demons at the cost of also being accessed by demons when you don't want it. And a storyteller can abuse that to very quickly dispose of you if he needs to. Regarding the Baali clan weakness, you should keep in mind that while you are not very comfortable around holy objects, they don't actually damage you and they don't actually kill you unless you have direct skin contact with them. So you can enter a church without problems. You can even enter holy ground, though that might give you quite some discomfort. You are, however, definitely not turning into ash instantly if you see a cross, and you don't go if you see something like that, because that would again make it quite hard to pose as a Baali. And you should keep in mind that some Baali in history actually managed to be very, very high ranking in the Catholic Church, all the way up to being a cardinal. So again, you don't just turn to ash when you see a religious idol. In modern times it's a bit weird, because a lot of religious symbols just became fashion, and you may see a lot of them on the streets or as painting or something like that. Meanwhile, true faith is very, very, very rare to encounter, and that's the actual real Baali clan Baali weakness, because true faith has double effect on Baali, which means that if you encounter someone with true faith, you are pretty much done. However, again, you don't turn to ash instantly, and holy objects also do not really damage you, even if you have skin contact with them, though it is painful and again causes you quite some discomfort. You should also keep in mind, while Baali are anti-God, your character doesn't have to be atheist or anti-God at all. Indeed, you are using a cover persona to appear to the outside world, and it's a good idea to be as unsuspicious as you possibly can. So even though you are playing a Baali, try to be pretty much everything that people think that a Baali is not. That is an important point. Maybe don't try to be a wholly upstanding member of the community to a degree where it's ridiculous, but also don't be dark and evil and shit like that all the time, because that's not really good role-playing. Keep in mind that you try to not stick out. You will not be a secret agent just going around and telling everyone that, hey, I'm a secret agent, you know. You try to be a bit more subtle about it. You kinda try to be the grey man, someone who doesn't stick out, someone who can hide in a crowd, someone who is just normal, you know? Also keep in mind that while your character very likely has a lot of occult knowledge, that doesn't mean that you actually have to portray that. You do not have to actually show everyone your strengths or all of your weaknesses. You can really try to be anything. You can even try to pass off as the not so skilled idiot that just tries to get by from night to night. That's actually a very good cover too. In special if you try to pass off in a new city as someone who may not even know who their sire is. When it comes to lineage, it's also highly advised that you pick a sire that is completely unknown in the city that you are playing. Preferably someone even from another continent. People won't just go and check, you know, and depending on the story of how you were embraced, people will not be suspicious if you say that you actually don't know who your sire is, or that the sire abandoned you. Of course, you should also pick a sire and a lineage that is rather obscure and unknown to begin with. You can even just make one up, but that's not always advisable. With K-Knights, chances are that someone knows a lot of the people in a certain clan, and that you will raise a lot of suspicion if you are claiming to be from someone nobody ever heard of. It may also be a good idea at the character creation to invest some points in the generation background, because Baali are usually of lower generation than other vampires. Well, before we go too far into character creation, I think we should end our visit to the archives today and continue another time. I hope you had fun and enjoyed. Please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell at the entrance of the Sanguine Archives to ring it and be notified when I make another tour. I hope you enjoyed and have a good, well, day.